Can you pick up the sound of the game?
Watch Bob never balls.
That's right.
Yeah.
There she is.
Where my trusty pencil bit the dirt. Can't believe that. I'll fix that.
Time being 7 o'clock, I call a council meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
presentations, chief. This is heavy. Oh, you. Absolutely. In honor of your 10 years for the service of Bartonville, the council and I are going to do this. You started, I know, in March of 2013 as a patrol officer, and promoted to sergeant in 2015 and chief in 2017. And the council and I truly appreciate your service.
I appreciate y'all giving me the opportunity to do that, and I hope you'll have me do it. Thank you, Bob.
Chief, congratulations.
Thank you.
Public participation. If you wish to address the council, please fill out a public meeting appearance card and provide it to Tammy, the town secretary. Please state your name and address for the record. Appointed representative, liaison reports, Denton County Emergency District, Jim.
Council, Mayor, it's great to see you all tonight. This is the new report that's being produced by Chief Rick, and I'll cover a couple of points with you here. And I didn't realize my cadre of the fire department was going to be here. They're probably going to correct me on many different issues, but as Dale always says, keep it quick. If we keep it quick, they won't have a chance. Okay, we're fully employed. That's what the first page says, which is a good thing, right? In regard to call volume, 251 in the month of January. Yours is blank for February. I just got it. It says 240. Let's see. Instance per month, a little pie-shaped thing. If you'll kind of squint your eye at the service call, which is yellow and gray, hazardous conditions or no fires, you get an idea what the breakdown is. Medical related for the month of January, 66% calls. For the month of February, 72.5%. So it jumped up in regard to illness related and accident related calls. For call volume for Bartonville, in January, we had 9. For the month of February, 21. For the magic 8 or the incredible 8 or the critical 8, that's what we call it. For the month of January, it was 7 minutes and 14 seconds. Arrival time to the scene from dispatch, and for February of 7:39. They actually had a little bit of a situation going on because of some mold that they had to redo, and I believe it was about 90 days that they were out of the firehouse on Gibbons Road. So that sort of adversely impacted the call time, but it was very seldom it was ever over 15 or 20 seconds above the 8 minutes. So they did a wonderful job. The last page is the community. If you want to glance through that, have 11,000 followers. In regard to what's going on with the new regime at the fire department, Dale with the county commissioner, an update on March the 28th. In fact, she was there tonight, so she'll get another update next week, right? In regard to one of the biggest obstacles that they had to accomplish, simply because they were a volunteer group, they were not able to have the municipal or whatever retirement plan. And they can no longer, they had a 401k, they can no longer have a 401k, so they have to go in, what is it, like an annuitized plan that they have to go into. They just covered that in detail with several members of the fire department and all the board members, and they approved it. So one more thing to go. Now, I believe the last thing that they have to do is deed over or change the names on one of the 3 fire stations over to the ESD instead of the AFVD. That's about it. It was just got the finances when I left, so it's gonna be a long meeting tonight. Any questions? Anything I can do? Nothing at all. Okay,
Thank you.
thank y'all.
Appreciate it. Police chief?
Mayor, council, staff, supplied you with the monthly graphs there, for the month of February, that is. Looks like the officer initiated total was at 302. And that includes traffic stops of 87. We had 107 calls for service. You can kind of see how they're broken down there. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I would like to, there is one on here that says, you may see it, I believe it's accident fleet. Typically, that means it's a town-owned vehicle, but that was entered incorrectly by the officer. It was simply just an accident. So we didn't crash any police cars.
Right, I didn't know what it was, so I'm glad you.
Somebody actually ran into the Bartonville store and for some reason he entered it as accident fleet. No big deal, but that's why that's in there. So
Somebody ran into the Barn Mill store.
they did. So when it was icy, they slid down just kind of bumped it.
Kind of slid into it.
Yeah, it's kind
The
of slid
patio
in.
part.
Didn't hurt the structure of the store. But anything you see in there, if you have any questions, ask. Then the fire EMS totals, we had 6 that we assisted our visitors with. Which brings the total. January, we had 366 and February we had 415. So things went up a little. 7 crashes. For some reason, 407 McMakin was a hot spot this last month for crashes. Not sure why, but we had 4, I believe, in that area. So one had injuries and the other 2 didn't.
Oh.
Well, actually, we had 2 in the intersection of 407 McMakin and Blanco, but they were coming off of McMakin onto 407, so they weren't coming this way. And then we had one at the right by the turning lane there to go into Kroger, just right in front of the store. And we had one at 600 McMakin, which was ice related, and then the Bartonville store, that one. So those were the 6 that we had. And there's that 12-month activity average. If you see that, if you see anything there that catches your eye, certainly ask. Kind of on a trend going up on total activity, but we went down a little on report calls. And that was basically because the previous year had more than we had this time. Upcoming events, DEA National Drug Take Back will be April 22nd in the parking lot here from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So pass it around to all your friends. Let them know. It doesn't have to just be Bartonville residents. Anybody can bring it. So it will be set up right here in the parking lot. And it's Carter blood donation time again. And we're going to be doing that May 20th, 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. over here at the Bartonville store. So anybody that wants to do that, as soon as we get the sign up sheet available, we'll pass that out or have that available. So I'm sorry. It's May 20th, 1 p to 7 p.m. We'll have it on our Facebook. We'll share it. All these things when I get a little closer.
Chief, on that drug take back, it does not matter. They don't have to be identified or any notations or addresses or names. Are just drugs.
Yeah, and including things that we shouldn't take that they said it's anonymous. So I'm not encouraging those types of things to show up here, but we can't do anything about it if they do. But no sharps and no liquids. So no needles, no any of that stuff, and no liquids. We even take pet meds. So because we got a bunch of that the last time around. That was a first. So interesting. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Town Administrator Monthly Report, February 2023, Financial Animal Control Code Enforcement Engineering Municipal Court Permits.
One note before I start, Tammy wrote it down. Spring cleanup is April 15th, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. So that's another item on y'all's list to keep an eye out for. Those postcards went out last week, I think.
Were delivered. I've seen them.
So you keep an eye on that. And again, we'll have the tree limbs. We don't know if they're going to have the shredder on site, but we have the capability to accept them anyway, and they can take care of that after. So again, that would be there. So financials for February, and again, I appreciate y'all's feedback last time. Now each one of those individual reports has the month and year on it, so they're all consistent, easier to read. And if they get separated from your report, you'll be able to see what where it was. Sales taxes are healthy. My starting note is always, we're almost 42% through our budget year, our fiscal year. So we'd like to see under 58% remaining to be collected. The way this report is generated, except for property tax. So again, we're doing well on sales tax. Property tax, we only have 2.61% remaining. So we're almost at the entire budget. And this is better than last year's numbers as well.
It's ahead of last year.
Yes. So again, that's good news that people have paid their property taxes and we're already sitting where we should be. Franchise fees, again, those are typically quarterly, so that fluctuates. Obviously, we're doing quite well on that, but we had that one quarter that came in basically right at the October cutoff. So it got posted last year and they moved it forward. So again, we may see that be over 100% collected, but I don't know that it'll be a lot more than that. Development fees, as I mentioned, now we have the Deer Hollow fees in, so that's why we're exceeding what our budget is there. We do not expect to see a lot more of that revenue in that category. That may be all we see for the year for the most part, because we don't have any other subdivisions on the books. Did you have a question on that one, Mayor?
Yeah, we're just really behind on that in terms of, will we get kind of caught up?
No, on the development fees, we're now at 138% of budget, so we're way over on that one.
Okay.
Yeah, on that
Case
category.
negative is.
Yeah, in this case, it's negatives and positives.
Do we keep that? Or does it go to the engineering?
That is an offset, if you will. So that is to
Okay.
cover that engineering category, if you will, on the other side of the equation.
Okay.
So most of that is the 3.5% that we charge against the value of the infrastructure. And that is how we pay primarily for the engineer to do the inspections. Permit fees are also doing quite well. Municipal court is also ahead. So again, revenues are very healthy. The next page you see is the sales tax 12-month rolling average. We're still trending up. It's not a sharp increase. We're not seeing any new openings right now, but we have several on the books that are coming. So we should see that tick up again probably in the next 3 to 4 months. General fund expenditures is your next page. This is kind of the big snapshot of admin, police, municipal court transfers. Everything is tracking. Again, we'd like to see 58% or more available. Transfers, that's not the case, but again, we've discussed this. This is transfers to the capital improvement fund, vehicle replacement fund, and the Lantana Center grant. So again, that doesn't always track with the rest of them. But overall, we're still staying well within budget. Expenditures by department. Again, tracking as we should. We want to see 58% or more remaining. And we're staying within that on actually all categories, including contracted services. With switching town engineers, I've had a lot of discussions with Chris Cha, and we're going to do our best to manage those engineering expenses for the new subdivisions, particularly Deer Hollow, because that's the primary one we have going, so that we don't exceed that budget again, as we did in years past. Do you have any questions on that one? Police department, again, we're staying within budget except for our contracted services. And again, those were the big ticket items for the social media archiving, new Brazos ticket system setup. And do y'all have any questions on that one? Nothing big of note. Like I say, revenues, we're staying in budget on our expenses, and revenues are slightly above what we hope to see.
Everything's tracking really well. It's good.
Thank you.
Let's have a code enforcement question. We've had some issues with code enforcement parts of town. Are we moving forward on those?
We are issuing citations now. Again, it's mostly a reactive code enforcement program. That's why we have the contractor. But we have some areas where we're seeing ignored warnings and them not cleaning up certain issues. So yes, we are issuing, I think we've issued 4 citations in the last month, as a matter of fact. So we try not to go there, but sometimes we have to get compliance.
Consent agenda. This agenda consists of non-controversial housekeeping items required by law. Items may be approved with a single motion. Items may be removed from the consent agenda by any council member by making such a request prior to the motion and vote on the consent agenda. Number 1, consider approval of February 21st, 2023 regular meeting minutes. Number 2, consider approval of the March 3rd, 2023 work session minutes. Number 3, accept certification of unopposed candidates and adopt a resolution canceling the May 6th, 2023 general election. Number 4, consider approval of consultant services agreement with Eddie Peacock PLLC for services relating to financial management support and authorization for the town administrator to execute the same on behalf of the town. Number 5, consider approval of interlocal agreement between the town of Bartonville, North Texas Central Council of Governments for grant funding to sponsor a tire collection event and authorization for the town administrator to execute the same on behalf of the town. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the consent agenda. Oh, sorry.
I would like to move 4 to the regular because I have a question about it. Number 4. Unless I can ask my question during this portion.
Oh, we need to move it to a regular session.
Okay.
So,
We get past the consent agenda.
yeah, get past the consent agenda, then you can ask. Okay, is it okay? So do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
You have a second?
Second.
All those
Except for
With the exception of item number 4.
Okay,
Second.
all those in favor of approving the consent agenda except the item 4? All those, so motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Regular items, discuss and consider appointing members to the ad hoc special events advisory committee.
excuse me, Mayor.
I'm sorry.
Now's the time to go ahead and address number 4.
Okay,
Sorry.
go ahead.
The thing with number 4, from what I read, this William Spoor has gone silent,
Correct.
but we have an agreement with him. What are we doing about that agreement?
We've not received any fees or invoices from him. He came in January, started the process to close out the books. He left. He was here for a week and a half. I worked with them. He had one component left on the developer fees and that part of the finances from last fiscal year, and he fell off the face of the planet. Other municipalities had the same issue. He finally contacted me, said he had an incident. He was in the hospital for a short period of time, but he would get it finished up. And we never heard from him again. The auditors didn't hear from him. So we have to get the audit finished. So we have to start the process over. Mr. Peacock is familiar with our software. He's familiar with it. He doesn't think it'll take him as long as 4. He may be able to go in and review his entries and get that information over to the auditors so that they can perform the audit. But we haven't paid him anything, so we're not out any money, just staff time.
My issue was not with Mr. Peacock, but we have an agreement with this guy. Should the town council not take action to terminate that agreement? And
It was for that specific purpose, so there's no other.
I mean, just to tack on that, is this something, is it overkill if we had Ed send a letter? Or, I mean, is there anything that we need to do to make sure he doesn't come back later and say, okay, here it is, you owe me for whatever work I did?
Right. It just seems
That's
like
where-
it's,
I think that's where you're going.
yeah, it seems like it's just unfinished business with
open-ended.
him. And I'd like to, I think we need to finish it.
You can put that on the future agenda.
Okay.
We'll put it on.
Good month to go ahead and cancel that one. That's not, and again, although I wasn't part of this, I actually worked with Eddie Peacock in Haslett. We had a finance director who passed away and he had helped us get through an interim period. He did a nice job for Haslett.
So can we not direct staff then to send Mr. Spoor a letter, a termination letter, Ed?
No, to terminate, we need council action on that.
Okay, Okay.
Next month, right, Ed?
Yeah, we need to put it on the agenda.
We need a motion to approve item 4.
I make a motion to approve item 4. And I also request that we add an item to next month's agenda to officially terminate Williamsport.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Regular items, discuss and consider appointing members to the Ad Hoc Special Events Advisory Committee. Keith, Jim Keith?
We had some great applications for this and we went through them the other day. And did you catch up with Thad last week? on
Did
that?
not catch up. with
Okay,
that.
just make
So,
sure.
but we
Um,
talked about it and we've identified.
We went through the applications and we've come out with Randy Van Alstine and Lori Van Alstine, Sean Stenovich, Brenda Brown, and the alternate was going to be Melissa DeWitt. And I know that Margie Aaron's is interested in serving on this. But with her about to be sworn in on the council, we only wanted 2 council members, so we didn't have quorum on this group. So Keith and I will be active until such point as as Margie is sworn in, and then one of us will potentially step off and give Margie her seat. So that's the plan now. Randy, Lori Van Alstine, Sean Stenovich, Brenda Brown with Melissa DeWitt as the alternate.
Motion for that?
Yes.
Okay.
Motion.
Make a motion that we appoint members to the Ad Hoc Special Events Advisory Committee. Randy Van Alstine, Lori Van Alstine, Sean Stenovich, Brenda Brown, and Melissa DeWitt
The alternate.
as the alternate.
Second. All those in favor? Motion carries 5-0.
Did the second, I'm sorry.
Number 7, discuss and consider approval of purchase of striping and rumble strips from Roadrunner Traffic Supply, Inc. in the amount of $23,853 for placement throughout the town to enhance driving safety and to authorize the town administrator to expend budgeted funds on behalf of the town.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This item will complete all of the ad hoc traffic committee recommendations, save for the radar signs. What we discovered the signs have been actually built. They've made all the signs. They were coming, we were on the schedule for those to start, and the previous town engineer realized we needed flagging, we needed the stop bars, we needed all of that at the same time. I had never done this. I'll know better next time. So I'll catch it. But we need all of that done at the same time, not piecemeal where the signs go up and people don't know where to stop and there's not enough notification. So again, this also does striping, like no passing zones in several locations. Again, I think it's 2,400, almost 2,500 linear feet of road striping to make it clear on the hills and other areas where there's no passing. So again, this will leave, if you approve this tonight, this will leave about 15,000 of the 70,000 amendment to get the radar signs purchased. So again, this finishes everything except for those radar signs, if you are inclined, and I'll answer any questions you may have.
This is approved. When would they do the work?
I would call Marilyn on the way to the house tonight and she'll get us on the schedule. The signs are already completed. We're hoping it would be within the next 2 to 3 weeks. And right now, tentatively, we've got tree trimming scheduled for April 19th and 20th as well. So we're going to see a lot of changes here in the next month. So you'll see be able to see all the existing signs as well, and it'll increase visibility on the new signs by doing that.
I think they would, and you may not know this, would they look to install all of this in one day, 1 week? Would they do piecemeal? I'm just thinking of resident notifications and traffic and all that.
I hope to do it over a 2-day period. But again, this is weather dependent because we've got striping involved. The signs are somewhat weather impacted but the striping is completely weather impacted. If we get rain like we have been, we may get delayed.
So
so
the striping would have to go down first and then before they put signs up.
That's typically how it's done. We may bag the signs if they have to schedule them to do the signs first.
Yeah.
Like the stop signs, we may just keep those covered until the bus stop bars and everything are down. And we will, as soon as we have more, a closer date, she couldn't get it scheduled until we got this approved. As soon as I know that, we will start blasting out through all of our
Send out,
social media
Notify me to everybody
Absolutely.
that's on the list.
to make sure everybody knows that it's coming.
And I'm gonna put it in my article, Gazette article, whoever reads that.
Yes.
I do. I read it all the time.
Good, word for word.
One other question.
Yes.
And I can't remember all the spots, but do we have any overlap of where we're going to be doing striping and then road work that we need to think about?
No, we pulled
Okay.
all that out.
Okay. All right. Just don't want to do.
We don't want to double
double
anything
the
either.
spend.
Oh.
No. Striping is actually quite expensive.
Oh, yeah.
So we did not want to double up.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? You have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of striping and rumble strip from Roadrunner Traffic Supply in the amount of $23,853.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. This, number 8, discussion on short-term rentals. Thad?
This one was just a discussion item. I think Councilmember Crandall brought that up last time. So the discussion is, would council like to perhaps send something to P and Z for them to consider? Councilmember Crandall?
I brought it up. It's been an issue in other towns, particularly in North Texas and other parts of Texas as well. I've thought about it for a couple months and I don't think we should wait until we have an issue. You know, we probably should address the potential that something like this could come to Bartonville. So I just wanted to put it on the agenda and have everybody else weigh in on it.
There's some legal issues here.
Mhm.
And currently, there are a few cases that have ruled in favor of cities and against cities. And it really has depended on what the city did to come up with the rule. The key case that ruled in favor of a city was the Arlington case. And Arlington spent almost 2 years having discussions and input with citizens and neighbors and in different various drafts and about 20 city council meetings to take input on what kinds of things people were concerned about. And so the result of that was an ordinance that did get challenged in court and it was approved by the Fort Worth Court of Appeals because the court noted that the city went through and pretty much focused on governmental functions and governmental issues. And basically Arlington's ordinance, without oversimplifying it, allows short-term rentals close to their entertainment areas. And they created a short-term rental overlay zone. And so it has a whole lot of different permit requirements and those kinds of things. The city of Dallas in today's paper is looking at doing the same kind of thing because that one got approved by the courts. Another case involving the city of Grapevine was not approved by the Fort Worth Court of Appeals or the Texas Supreme Court because it had a different approach and tried to ban short-term rentals throughout the city without designating any kind of zones or anything. And so the courts have held that to be a constitutional violation of property rights. And so there are 2 bills right now in Austin that are going through the process. And so if they get approved by the legislature, they would prohibit cities from doing anything about regulating short-term rentals, period. And so since we only have a couple of months until the legislature's over, and it would take longer than that for us to do something and have meetings and do it, I would like to recommend that we wait and see what happens in Austin first before we spin our wheels. I mean, that to me is kind of as relevant as anything. There are a couple of Texas Supreme Court cases that have said that HOAs, on the other hand, since they're not government, can adopt rules that limit or regulate or prohibit short-term rentals in the HOA area. Y'all don't have a whole bunch of those, but that's something that also is out there. And so several HOAs have adopted that as a rationale because that's a contract, that's a private situation, it's not government. So that's a real high view and a Reader's Digest summary of kind of the issues there without getting into the weeds any. But I think that given the way things are kind of going, I mean, Dallas and Fort Worth and Plano right now are really wrestling with coming up with ordinance provisions, even though there are these bills in Austin that may get approved. This is the third session where they've had short-term rental regulations on the books or that were filed. In the first one, they went through committee and then almost got approved when everything fell apart 2 sessions ago regarding the bathroom bill. And so they got pushed by the wayside. Last session in 2021, some bills were filed, but they ended up not going very far for a variety of reasons. The 2 that are filed this year are going through the process of committee reviews right now. So it's, I think, helpful to see what happens in Austin would be, I think, a good starting point because you've only got a couple more months. Then we can see what the legislature does. By that time, there may be another case or 2 that comes down and may help give us some good guidance on what we can and can't do.
This be in May? They're going to meet on it in May, do you think?
Well, the legislature ends at the end of June.
Okay.
So I say a couple of months, maybe 3, but since we're going to be looking at different provisions and they're going to go in the zoning ordinance, most likely, even the lead time on getting zoning ordinances approved would take us probably into May or June at the earliest.
Okay.
So,
is this something that's best tabled until after June? And then we can put this back on the
I
docket?
mean, I'm not trying to tell y'all what to do, but it's a recommendation I make because if the legislature does like what they like to do against cities every session, it seems like here the past 2 or 3 times, they may take it away from us, the ability to regulate. And everything that Arlington did and everything that the other cities have done and are doing won't matter.
Do you have any way of knowing, any knowledge as to what we have presently in Bartonville as far as B&B and short term?
We don't have anything that regulates it, so we don't have any real good intel on that.
The council has approved by conditional use permit a bed and breakfast because it's a use on your land use table. But as far as short-term rentals, we don't even know when somebody rents a house out, let alone long-term rental or short-term rental. We have no way of knowing.
Last 4 or 5 years, I've only known of 2 instances where someone had a short term, not necessarily short term rental, but weekends or and so forth. And both of those no longer exist and they've turned into full-time rentals because there just wasn't enough occupancy to make it worthwhile. And I was just curious as to whether we had knowledge that there is something that going on now that in the community, whether it travels by word of mouth or whether there's something that the town has knowledge of.
I think the concern, excuse me, might be that some of the mother-in-law quarters are going to end up being rentals when the mother-in-laws are no longer around. They turn them into rentals because they've got, a nice place for someone to move into. So anyway.
What really is going to warp your noodle a little bit is what's happening now about hourly rentals of swimming pools, kitchens, and backyards. Swimply is one website. Pier Space is another website where people rent portions of their property or swimming pools or something
We had that in Haslett.
for an hourly rate. And
It's the new in vogue side hustle, rent your pool out for
yeah, that's
birthday parties or.
a whole new bag of tricks right there.
Yeah. I appreciate it. I didn't know about the bill that was going through Austin. So I think your recommendation makes sense to me to wait. Otherwise, if they do pass something, then all the work that we would do would just be for naught. So we can wait and see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have to work as hard for you.
I would like to revisit it though, when, once legislature is complete and we have an idea of where this is headed, I'd like to revisit it.
All right, make a note of that.
We'll just have to put it back on the agenda for discussion.
Yeah.
Maybe
Maybe July.
mid-May.
Kind of get the ball rolling then if
Sure.
it's available.
Yeah.
And then we can
Yeah.
start a process.
So we'll just wait a few more months on, okay, thank you. Number 9, discussion on street repair and maintenance.
Mayor and council, we actually had council members Sam's, Chapman and Crandall at the workshop as well as the mayor and our new town engineer, Chris Cha. We are looking at, we're basically reevaluating where we are. Chris has asked the individual who made the presentation on the GeoGrid for any examples where that was used for reconstruction. And he hasn't gotten anything back yet. So again, in new construction, GeoGrid makes sense. In reconstruction, what we discovered and heard from the gentleman was that GeoMat or GeoGrid has to be on the subgrade. So through our typical reconstruction process, we pulverize the existing road and then we, roll that out as the base. That would now have to all be removed to get to the subgrade and put that GeoGrid or GeoMat down, then go back with that. So again, you're talking about a much more expensive product than what we were really anticipating going forward.
It's the machinery and the trucks to
To
haul.
try and get it, yes.
To find a place to put the base so that you can put the grid down and then put the base
Yeah.
back on.
We don't have a public works yard where that could happen or anything like that. So it becomes a little more problematic in the
Not heard back
process.
from him at all.
No, I
Okay,
have not.
because we asked him for a couple of things. I know we asked him for some cost comparison of what the difference would be between pulverizing, moving and returning that base. And he said he was going to get that to us as well as some examples of rework and
Chris Chaw has reached out to him a couple of times and again, he hasn't received that information yet. Because again, it either may not exist or it may be so prohibitive that he's not concerned about providing it. Additionally, Chris Chaw and I went around. We may have to work on messaging and again, council direction. One of the biggest things that we see is that the issues are related to the trees close to the road. So again, almost regardless of our process, we'll need to manage that and have a program where we're resurfacing or at least crack sealing fairly frequently, unless y'all are okay with trees dying next to your road. And I know the answer to that. So again, it's a huge issue that without going in concrete or going in and chewing up the roots that are getting into the road base. And if you never know when you're going to hit that 25% and cause that tree to die. So again, that may be something we look at. We may want to continue our traditional reconstruction without the GeoGrid and just manage that better, not let it go so far where it gets cracked and starts falling apart. So again, we're just kind of retooling. Mayor, anything you want to add there? Because, thought we were ready to do a road project. We're really reevaluating what is cost effective for what you're wanting to see for your roads.
You just don't want to spend a bunch of money on GeoGrid or chemical stabilization or something if the roots are going to make the road move from underneath anyway. And when they were driving around looking, look at the places where the trees are right next to the road, like on the S curve, that's where you have a lot of bumpiness and movement. If you look at Gibbons Road, the trees are further away from the road. It's a little bit smoother road and it's stayed more stable, it seems like.
West Cheater too is kind of like that.
Yes.
Yes, and even the 3 patches where the test sections were, I took Chris out there and he goes, I wish it was consistent because in one area, the trees are real close to the road and then it's, you've got that variation. So you have a variable that you really can't account for on what's tearing that up right there.
I don't know if you know the answer to this, but when they did those 3 patches, did they follow the procedure that was prescribed at the work session where they pulverized it, removed all the material?
That I
laid
did
it
not
down,
know an answer
subgraded,
to.
and started over? Interesting.
We just want to be careful. We don't spend a bunch of money on something that's not going to work
Sure.
and it's going to move in a year. So I think we were asking Chris Shaw, like he was saying, to come back to the April meeting and do a presentation to us in terms of what he recommends to move forward with our road repair. Maintenance.
Thought we would be doing roads right now, so we wanted to bring again the discussion forward as we changed engineers and as we've spent a lot more time on this. Just let y'all know, we're working on it and we were gonna bring Chris back on in April.
Do you have any plans to send out any pothole repairs or a work order for that is in the works or anything?
Dad, you were gonna do those with a bag of asphalt?
Yeah, you're gonna go around. and-
We actually have work order number 4 that we need to get moving on. And actually that price is already under my signature authority, so I can get that done now. We also have several potholes that have come up over the last rainstorms. McMakin's actually got several bad
East
spots as
Peter's
well.
got that one that always comes back right there.
Yes, so we're gonna get that on the books as soon as I can get a SPI out here.
Okay.
You almost need a full-time pothole repair group, like every 3 months or something, because
Yeah.
it just seems like they
They
just,
pop back.
everything's smooth and then in a week, there's 5 of them or something.
That's kind of what you were suggesting, right? With like a routine crack repair that's
Yeah.
out there scanning the road every quarter to make sure that we're not finding more and more or leaving damage untreated that gets worse as it just left alone.
Yes, especially if you've done a reconstruction project, you've got to watch it, because if those cracks start, if you cover them early, it's not necessarily going to continue that failure. But if you let that water get down in there, you've lost.
Closed session pursuant to the Texas Open Meetings Act, Chapter 551, the town council will meet and close executive session in accordance with the Texas Government Code. Number 1, Section 551.074, personnel to deliberate and consider appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline or dismissal of public officers or employees, to wit, the town secretary. We will also move into executive session for consultation with the town attorney regarding legal issues related to this item under section 551.071 of the Texas Government Code. We'll go into the legal executive session first. Time being 7:41, we're now in executive session.